The large house sat on top of a hill, looking down on the city below. It had more rooms than a person could count in a day, and windows that sparkled when the sun hit them. Most people who drove by thought it must be a dream to live there. They imagined happy families laughing in big halls. But for 12-year-old Lily, the house was not a dream. It was a very quiet, very lonely place, since her mother had passed away 2 years ago. The silence in the house had grown heavy. Her father, Robert, was a man who had built a massive empire in the technology world. He was worth billions of dollars, but money could not buy back the time he lost. After his wife died, he threw himself into his work. He traveled from country to country, signing deals and running companies. He loved his daughter deeply, but he did not know how to reach her anymore. He thought that if he gave her everything she wanted in terms of toys and clothes, she would be happy. But Lily did not want toys. She wanted her mother, and she wanted her father. Instead, she got Victoria. Victoria was Robert's new wife. She was beautiful, always dressed in the finest clothes, with her hair styled perfectly. She smiled brightly at parties and charity events, but that smile never quite reached her eyes when she was at home. Victoria did not see Lily as a child who needed love. She saw Lily as a project that needed to be fixed. Victoria was obsessed with the idea of the perfect family. She wanted the world to see them as cultured, elegant, and flawless. She decided that the best way to show this was through music, specifically the piano. It wasn't enough for Lily to just play. She had to be the best. She had to be a prodigy. Music separates the civilized from the common, Victoria often said, sipping her tea while looking out over the manicured gardens. Lily has the potential to be great. She just needs discipline. The grand piano sat in the middle of the main living room. It was a shiny black monster, taking up a huge amount of space. At first, Lily had actually liked the piano. She liked the way the keys felt cool under her fingers. She liked making sounds that could be sad or happy, but that feeling didn't last long. Victoria's idea of practice had nothing to do with joy. It was all about control. It started small. Lily had to practice for 1 hour after school. Then it was 2. Then it was 3. If she complained, Victoria would give her a lecture about how ungrateful she was. Considering how much money her father spent on the best tutors, you have a gift. Lily, Victoria would tell her, her voice sharp, it would be a sin to waste it. Your father works himself to the bone so you can have this instrument. The least you can do is play it correctly. She played until her wrists ached and her fingers felt stiff. She played simple songs over and over again until the melody became boring and annoying, like a fly buzzing in her ear. But Victoria was never satisfied. If Lily missed a note, Victoria would sigh loudly, a sound that made Lily's stomach drop. No, again, Victoria would say from the sofa, not even looking up from her magazine. One rainy Tuesday, the routine took a darker turn. It had been a long day at school, and Lily was tired. She walked into the living room, her backpack feeling like it weighed 100 pounds. Victoria was there, waiting. She was holding a long, thin wooden ruler, tapping it against her palm. Today we begin the piece for the winter recital, Victoria announced. We have 3 months. It is a difficult piece, Chopin. We will not stop until you get it right. Lily sat down on the bench. The stool was hard. She placed her hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play. The song was fast and complicated. Her fingers tripped over each other, hitting wrong notes that clanged in the quiet room. She stopped, frustrated, and tried to fix it. Suddenly, the wooden ruler smacked down on the back of her hand. It wasn't hard enough to break bone, but it stung sharply. Lily jumped back, pulling her hands to her chest, tears springing to her eyes. We do not stop, Victoria said calmly. If you make a mistake, you keep going. Mistakes are for the weak. Put your hands back on the keys. Lily looked at her stepmother, hoping to see a sign of kindness, maybe a hint that she was joking. But Victoria's face was stone cold. She held the ruler up, ready to strike again. Fear crawled up Lily's throat. She didn't want to play, but she was more afraid of what would happen if she didn't. She slowly put her hands back on the piano. That day marked a change. The house became a place of fear. Every day after school, the ritual was the same. Lunch was a quick sandwich eaten while standing at the kitchen counter. Then it was straight to the piano. Victoria would sit right next to her, watching like a hawk. If Lily's posture slumped, Victoria would poke her back with the ruler. If Lily played a wrong chord, the ruler would come down on her knuckles. Lily tried to talk to her father about it. Robert was home for a rare weekend, sitting in his office. Lily stood in the doorway, twisting her hands together. She wanted to tell him about the ruler, about the aching wrists, about how she cried every night. "Come in, sweetie," Robert said, smiling tiredly. He looked tired, but he put down his pen when he saw her. "How is school? How is the piano going?" Lily looked at his kind face. She saw the dark circles under his eyes. He looked so stressed. She didn't want to add to his burden. She didn't want him to think she was a troublemaker. Victoria had told her many times, "Don't bother your father with small things. He is saving the world." "It's okay," Lily whispered, the words feeling like stones in her mouth. "I'm practicing a lot." "Victoria says I'm getting better. That's wonderful," Robert beamed, not seeing the sadness in her eyes. "Victoria is so good with you. I'm lucky she cares so much about your future." Lily nodded and walked out of the room, her heart sinking. She felt alone. She realized that if she didn't say anything, nothing would change. The weeks went by and the practices got longer. 4 hours after school, and then 2 more after dinner. Dinner was often cold by the time Lily was allowed to eat it. Victoria hired a strict old piano teacher who came by on weekends to check her progress. Nodding approvingly at Victoria's harsh methods, "Talent must be forged in fire," the old teacher said. Glaring at Lily over his spectacles, Lily felt like she was burning. She missed riding her bike. She missed drawing silly pictures. She missed just sitting in the garden and watching the birds. Now everything was black and white keys. The music became a blur of noise that she hated. She started to dread the sound of the piano. One evening, after a particularly bad practice where she couldn't get a small section right, Victoria sent her to her room without dinner. "You lack focus," Victoria said coldly as Lily ran up the stairs. "No dinner until you can play that section without looking at your hands." Lily lay in her bed, her stomach growling. She looked out the window at the city lights below. Her father was somewhere down there, in a tall office building, working. He had no idea that the perfect life he thought he was providing was actually a prison for his daughter. Lily looked at her hands in the moonlight. They were small, but they felt old and tired. She curled them into fists, pressing them against her eyes to stop the tears. She knew she couldn't keep going like this. The pressure was building up inside her chest like a balloon that was ready to pop. She didn't know what was going to happen, but she knew something had to give. She just wanted it to stop. She would do anything to make the music stop. The week leading up to the big concert was the worst week of Lily's life. The house, which was usually quiet, now felt like a pressure cooker waiting to explode. Victoria had turned the entire schedule upside down. There was no more talking, no more watching television, and no more going outside to even feel the sun on her face. The only thing that mattered now was the upcoming performance. Victoria had invited everyone she knew, wealthy friends, business partners, and people from the country club. She had told everyone that Lily was a hidden genius, a musical prodigy who was going to shock the world. Lily was terrified because she knew the truth. She wasn't a genius. She was just a tired, scared girl who wanted to run away. On Monday, the restrictions started. Victoria took away Lily's phone and her tablet. She even unplugged the television in the living room. "You need absolute focus," Victoria said, standing in the doorway of Lily's room. "Distractions are the enemy of greatness. Until the concert is over, you are done with those toys." Lily wanted to argue, but the look in Victoria's eyes stopped her. It was a look that said she wouldn't tolerate any backtalk. So Lily just nodded and looked down at her shoes. The practice routine became brutal. Every day after school, Lily came home, dropped her bag, and sat at the piano for 4 hours straight. Victoria sat right next to her on the bench, watching every finger movement like a hawk watching a mouse. If Lily's posture slumped even a little bit, Victoria would poke her in the back with a long wooden knitting needle she had started carrying around. "Sit up straight," she would hiss. "You look like a potato sack. Do you want to embarrass your father?" After the first 4-hour session, Lily was allowed a quick 15 minutes to eat a sandwich at the kitchen counter. Then, it was back to the piano until bedtime. Her wrists hurt constantly now. Sometimes, when she was trying to sleep at night, her hands would twitch on their own, as if they were still playing the song. She would rub her wrists, feeling the tendons throbbing under her skin, and cry silently into her pillow so Victoria wouldn't hear her through the walls. By Thursday, the mental strain was starting to show. Lily's teacher at school asked her if she was feeling okay because she looked so pale. Lily just mumbled that she was tired. She couldn't tell anyone about what happened at home. She felt like she was carrying a heavy, dark secret that was slowly crushing her. Friday was the worst day. It was raining outside, a cold, gray rain that battered against the large windows of the mansion. The sound of the rain usually made Lily feel cozy, but today it just made the house feel colder and more isolated. Lily had had a terrible day at school. She had forgotten her homework and gotten a lecture from her math teacher. All she wanted to do was curl up under a blanket and hide, but Victoria was waiting for her when the front door opened. She didn't even say hello. She just pointed toward the living room. "We are behind schedule," Victoria said sharply. "You were hesitating on the third movement yesterday. We have 2 days left. We will not stop until you play it perfectly 10 times in a row." Lily walked to the piano like she was walking to her execution. She sat down and started to play. The music was fast and complicated, full of jumps and runs that required her hands to move faster than her brain could think. Her fingers felt heavy and clumsy. She missed a note, then another. She tried to correct herself, but she just kept getting tangled up. Victoria's patience snapped. She stood up and grabbed Lily's hands, squeezing her wrists tightly. Lily gasped and tried to pull away, but Victoria held on. "You are doing this on purpose," Victoria shouted, her face turning red. "I know you are smart enough to do this. Why are you being so lazy? Is it fun to make me angry? Do you like embarrassing this family?" "I'm not trying to be lazy," Lily cried out, tears filling her eyes. "My hands hurt. I'm just tired." Victoria let go of her wrists, but smacked the top of the piano loudly, making a booming sound that echoed through the high ceiling. "I don't care if you are tired. Do you think your father is tired? He works 20 hours a day to give you this life. The least you can do is play a simple song when people ask you to. You are selfish, Lily, just like your mother was." The mention of her mother was like a slap in the face. Lily felt a hot flash of anger rush through her chest. Victoria was never supposed to talk about her mother. Her father had made that rule. The room went dead silent. The only sound was the rain hitting the glass. "Don't talk about her," Lily whispered. Her voice was shaking, but it was firm. "I will talk about whoever I want," Victoria sneered. "Now pick up your hands and play, or you will sit in this chair all night without dinner." Lily looked at the keys. They looked blurry through her tears. She thought about her mother, who used to sing to her and tell her that music was about feelings, not about being perfect. She thought about her father, who was miles away, oblivious to the nightmare his house had become. She thought about the pain in her wrists and the ache in her heart. She realized she couldn't do it anymore. The balloon inside her chest finally burst. Lily didn't put her hands on the keys. Instead, she slammed her forearms down onto the piano with all the strength she had left. A terrible, loud crash of discordant notes rang out, jarring and ugly. It was the worst sound the piano had ever made, and Lily loved it. It was the sound of her breaking. "Yes and no," Lily screamed at the top of her lungs. She jumped off the bench and kicked the leg of the heavy piano. It hurt her toes, but she didn't care. "I hate this. I hate you. I am never playing this stupid thing again." Victoria stood there, her mouth open in shock. She was not used to Lily fighting back. She looked pale for a second, but then her face twisted into a mask of pure rage. She stepped forward and raised her hand. "How dare you speak to me that way?" Victoria yelled. She brought her hand down hard across Lily's cheek. The slap was loud. It knocked Lily's head to the side. Her cheeks stung instantly, and she could feel a hot red mark forming. It hurt, but the shame hurt even more. Lily stumbled back, holding her face, sobbing uncontrollably. Victoria didn't look sorry. She looked terrifying. "You are a spoiled, ungrateful brat," Victoria said, her voice low and shaking. "You have no idea what you just did. Go to your room now. You can't lock me in," Lily screamed. "I can do whatever I want," Victoria said, grabbing Lily by the arm and dragging her toward the stairs. "You are staying in there until the concert. You can come out when you are ready to apologize and play like a human being." Victoria shoved Lily into her room and slammed the door. Then, Lily heard the sound of a key turning in the lock. Click, she was trapped. Lily threw herself onto her bed and buried her face in the pillow. She screamed until her throat was raw and kicked the mattress until her legs were tired. Outside, the storm raged on, thunder shaking the windows. She felt completely alone. She wondered if her father would ever come home. She wondered if anyone would ever save her. As the hours passed by, the light from the window faded until her room was pitch black. She lay there in the dark, hugging her knees, listening to the sound of the silence in the house, wondering how she was going to survive the next 2 days. The morning of the concert arrived, with a gray, misty light that filtered through the heavy curtains of Lily's room. She woke up with a stiff neck and a heavy heart. The events of the previous night feeling like a bad dream that she couldn't wake up from. Her cheeks still throbbed where Victoria had hit her. The skin felt hot and tight to the touch. She sat up slowly, hugging her knees to her chest, listening for any sound in the house. It was quiet. When the key turned in the lock, Lily flinched. The door opened, and Victoria stepped in. She was already dressed in an expensive, shimmering gown, her hair and makeup perfectly done. She didn't look angry anymore, just cold and determined. "Get up," Victoria said, her voice flat. She threw a dress onto the bed. It was a pale pink gown that Lily had worn once before for a wedding. It felt tight and scratchy then, and the idea of wearing it now made Lily feel sick. "Put this on. We have to be at the concert hall in an hour. And fix your hair. You look a mess." Lily didn't move. She stared at the wall, refusing to make eye contact. "I said get up, Lily," Victoria warned, stepping closer. "Do not think for a second that you can embarrass me today. Your father will be watching. I've already told him you are nervous, but ready. If you try to pull a stunt like you did yesterday, he will be very disappointed. You don't want to be the reason he is stressed, do you?" That was the trick. Victoria always knew exactly what button to push. Even though Lily was terrified and angry, the thought of disappointing her father was the one thing that could make her obey. Slowly, with tears burning her eyes, she slid off the bed and picked up the dress. The ride to the concert hall was silent. The driver drove the long, expensive car through the city, but Lily felt like she was in a bubble. Victoria sat next to her, scrolling through her phone, ignoring the girl completely. They arrived at a massive building made of stone and glass. There were cars everywhere, and people dressed in fancy clothes were hurrying inside. Inside, the atmosphere was buzzing. The hall was huge, with red velvet seats and a massive crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling. It smelled like old wood and expensive perfume. They went backstage, where it was chaotic. People were running around with instruments, and tuning forks were humming in the air. Victoria found Lily's dressing room. It was small, just a mirror and a chair. "Sit here and don't move," Victoria commanded. "I need to go greet some people." "Do not you dare leave this room." Lily sat on the hard chair and stared at herself in the mirror. The girl looking back looked like a stranger. Her face was pale, her eyes were red and puffy, and there was a dark bruise forming on her cheekbone. She tried to fix her hair to cover it, pulling her bangs down low. She felt like a prisoner waiting for a execution rather than a performer about to play music. Time seemed to drag on forever. Then, from somewhere down the hall, she heard a commotion. It wasn't the normal noise of a concert. It was shouting. Loud, angry shouting. Lily perked up, her heart beating faster. How could you let this happen? She heard a man's voice roar. It was familiar. It sounded like her father. I don't know what you were talking about, Robert, Victoria's voice answered, sounding higher and shaky than usual. You are making a scene. Lily stood up and pressed her ear against the door. She could hear heavy footsteps getting closer. Don't lie to me, her father yelled. Security gave me the feed. I saw it on my phone from the airport. I saw what you did to her. Lily's breath caught in her throat. Her father was here. He knew suddenly. The door to her dressing room flew open. Lily jumped back. There, standing in the doorway, was her father. He looked wild. He was still wearing his travel clothes, a wrinkled suit jacket, and no tie. His hair was messy, and his chest was heaving like he had been running. But his eyes were filled with a fire Lily had never seen before. Behind him, Victoria came rushing in, her face white with panic. Robert, please, she's about to go on. You can't just barge in here, shut up, Robert shouted, pointing a finger at her. He didn't even look at her. He walked over to Lily and dropped to his knees in front of the chair, ignoring the dust on the floor. He took her face gently in his large, rough hands. Lily, he whispered, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Lily looked into his eyes and saw tears forming. She couldn't hold it in anymore. She let out a sob and threw her arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. She felt him hold her tight, tighter than he had ever held her before. I don't want to play, she cried into his jacket. Please, Daddy, don't make me play. It hurts. He pulled back slightly and looked at the bruise on her cheek. His jaw clenched so hard she could see the muscle twitching. He gently touched the mark with his thumb. I know, he said softly. I saw everything. She locked you in your room. She hit you. She is never going to touch you again. Victoria stepped forward, trying to regain control. Robert, stop acting crazy. She is being dramatic. This is a very important night for her career. Look at her. She is fine. The audience is waiting. Robert stood up slowly. He turned to face Victoria. He was a tall man, and he towered over her. The room went completely silent. Even the noise from the hallway seemed to fade away. Career? Robert said, his voice dangerously low. She is 12 years old. She is a child, not a trophy for you to show off to your friends. I saw the tapes, Victoria. I saw the ruler. I heard the things you said to her. You called her selfish? You locked her in a dark room? If you ever come near her again, I will spend every cent I have to destroy you. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She looked from Robert to Lily, realizing that the game was over. But the recital? She stammered weakly. There is no recital, Robert said. He looked down at Lily and held out his hand. Come on, sweetie. We are going home. Lily took his hand. It felt big and warm and safe. She stood up, leaving the pink dress and the fear behind. Wait. You can't just leave, Victoria shrieked, grabbing Robert's arm. Everyone is out there. They are expecting her. I promised the conductor. Robert shook her off like she was nothing. He didn't say another word to her. He just picked up Lily's small bag in one hand and kept her hand tight in the other. They walked out of the dressing room, past the shocked stagehands, and down the long hallway toward the back exit. Lily could hear the announcer's voice booming from the speakers in the hall. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our young soloist, Lily Sterling, to perform the works of Chopin. The audience began to clap. The sound was loud and terrifying. Lily squeezed her father's hand. Don't listen, Lily, he said, pushing the heavy metal exit door open. The cool night air rushed in to meet them. They don't matter. You matter. They stepped out into the night. The streetlights were glowing, and a few raindrops were starting to fall. Behind them, the concert hall was filled with people waiting for a show that wasn't going to happen. In front of them, the car was waiting, the engine running. Robert opened the door for her, and Lily climbed in. As he walked around to the other side, Lily looked back one last time at the grand building. She saw Victoria standing in the open doorway of the backstage entrance, looking small and angry. Silhouetted against the bright lights, Robert got into the car and slammed the door shut, shutting out the noise and the pressure. He looked at the driver in the rearview mirror. "Take us home," he said. Then he turned to Lily and smiled, a real warm smile that reached his eyes. "And when we get there, we are ordering pizza, and we can throw that piano in the trash if you want." Lily leaned her head against his shoulder. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she could breathe again. The nightmare was over. The car ride back to the big house was the quietest ride Lily had ever taken, but it wasn't the lonely, scary kind of quiet she was used to. It was a peaceful silence. Outside the windows, the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and white, but inside the car, the world felt small and safe. Her father sat close to her, his arm wrapped around her shoulders, holding her tight against his side. Every time the car hit a bump, he would squeeze her a little, as if to remind himself that she was really there and she was okay. Lily rested her head on his chest. She could hear the steady thumping of his heart. It was a sound that made her eyes close. For 2 years she had felt like a ghost in her own home, drifting through hallways without anyone noticing her. But now, she felt solid again. She felt real. When the car pulled up the long driveway to the mansion, the house looked dark and imposing against the night sky. Usually, the sight of the large front doors made Lily's stomach hurt with dread. She associated it with endless practice and Victoria's cold stare. But tonight, as her father opened the car door and took her hand, the house just looked like a pile of bricks and wood. It couldn't hurt her anymore. They walked inside, and the lights clicked on. Everything was exactly as they had left it. The expensive art was on the walls. The shiny marble floors reflected the ceiling lights. And there, in the middle of the living room, sat the black grand piano. It looked like a giant sleeping beast. Lily stopped in the doorway and stared at it. She froze. Her fingers twitched at her sides, a habit she had developed from hours of practice. Her father noticed her stop immediately. He looked from the piano to her terrified face. He didn't say a word. He just tightened his grip on her hand and pulled her gently away from the instrument. "You don't ever have to touch that thing again if you don't want to," he said firmly. Not one single time. He led her into the kitchen instead. The kitchen was massive, with 2 ovens and a refrigerator that could stock a small grocery store. But Lily usually only ever ate a sandwich or a salad standing up. Tonight her father walked over to the pantry and started pulling things out. "What are you doing?" Lily asked, her voice raspy from crying earlier. "We are having a feast," her father said, rolling up the sleeves of his dress shirt. He took out a bag of chocolate chips, flour, sugar, and butter. "I remember when you were little, before your mom got sick, we used to make cookies on Friday nights. Do you remember that?" Lily nodded slowly. She did remember. It was one of her few happy memories. Her mother used to let her lick the spoon. But Victoria said baking makes a mess, Lily whispered automatically. It was so ingrained in her brain to fear the mess that she said it without thinking. Her father stopped what he was doing. He looked at her with a sad, gentle smile. "Victoria isn't here anymore, Lily. She is never coming back. And if we make a mess, we will clean it up. But tonight we don't care about the mess." They spent the next hour at the large kitchen island. It was chaotic and wonderful. Her father didn't know how to cook very well, so he dumped too much flour on the counter. Lily reached out and stuck her finger in the pile of white powder, drawing a smiley face. She looked at him, afraid he might be mad, but he just laughed, a real loud laugh. It was a sound she hadn't heard in years. He flicked a bit of flour back at her nose. For the first time in a long time, Lily laughed too. It felt strange, like stretching a muscle she hadn't used in ages, but it felt good. They mixed the dough with their hands, getting sticky and covered in sugar, while the cookies baked in the oven, filling the kitchen with a warm, sweet smell. Her father sat on a stool and looked at her seriously. "I need to tell you something, Lily," he said, brushing a stray hair out of her eyes. "I saw the security videos. I watched them on the plane on the way here." Lily looked down at her hands, ashamed. "You saw me scream? You saw me break the music?" "I saw you stand up for yourself," he corrected her. "And I saw how she treated you. I saw the ruler. Saw her lock you in your room." His voice started to shake with anger again. "I saw her slap you. I am so sorry, Lily. I was so blind. I thought I was giving you everything you needed by working hard, but I gave you to a monster. I failed you, and I promise I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you." "It wasn't your fault, Daddy," Lily said, tears welling up again. "She scared me." "I know," he said, pulling her into a hug, "but you are safe now. So, the lawyers are already working on it. She is not allowed in this house. I have changed the locks. I've fired the security staff who let her do this. It's just us now." Just then, the oven timer dinged. The smell of warm chocolate chip cookies filled the air. They sat on the floor of the massive kitchen, eating the cookies right off the baking sheet, burning their tongues a little, but not caring. The house didn't feel cold and empty anymore. It felt warm. The next few days passed in a blur. Her father didn't go to work. He stayed home with her. They spent the first day just doing nothing. They watched cartoons in the living room. Lily made a tent out of blankets and pillows right in the middle of the expensive rug. Her father didn't complain about the mess. Crawled inside the tent with her and ate popcorn. On the third day, Lily woke up and walked out of her room. She heard voices downstairs. Her heart started beating fast. She thought for a second that Victoria had come back. She crept down the stairs, peering into the living room. There were men in suits there, carrying large boxes. And there was the piano. The lid was open. One man was carefully dismantling the pedals. Another was wrapping the keys in thick padding. Her father saw her standing on the stairs. He walked over to her. "I called a charity this morning," he said. "They have a music school for underprivileged kids. They need a piano. This one is going to them. The truck is outside." Lily's eyes went wide. "You're selling it?" "I'm giving it away," he said. "It's just a thing, Lily. It's not worth your happiness. I want the music room to be something you actually like. What do you want in there?" "A game room, an art studio." "Anything you want." Lily looked at the men wrapping up the black beast. A huge weight lifted off her shoulders. That piano had been the source of so much pain, so many tears, and so much fear. Seeing it taken apart, piece by piece, felt like watching a storm cloud disappear. "I think I'd like to paint," Lily said quietly. "Then we will buy every color of paint they sell." Her father smiled. As the movers wheeled the heavy piano out the front door, the sunlight streamed into the hallway. The house felt bigger, lighter. There was a space where the monster used to be, and now it was just empty space, ready for something new. Lily stood next to her father holding his hand and watched the truck drive away. She took a deep breath. The air smelled like fresh grass and possibility. She knew that the hard part wasn't completely over. There were still feelings to sort through. And she still had bad dreams sometimes, but she knew she wasn't alone anymore. She had her father back, and that was enough. A year can feel like a lifetime when you are young. But for Lily, the past 12 months had been about discovering what a real lifetime actually looked like. The massive house on the hill didn't look like a museum anymore. It looked like a home. There were socks left on the floor sometimes. There were dishes in the sink. There was noise. There was life. The room that used to hold the scary black piano was now unrecognizable. The heavy curtains had been taken down to let the sunlight pour in. The cold, shiny floor was covered with colorful rugs, where the instrument used to sit like a dark monster. There was now a large easel and a long table covered in paint tubes, brushes, and jars of water. The walls were no longer bare. They were filled with paintings. Some of them were messy, abstract explosions of color, while others were careful drawings of the garden outside. Lily stood in the center of the room, wearing an oversized t-shirt covered in blue paint splatters. She was holding a palette, mixing 2 shades of green. She didn't hear the door open behind her. "Are we painting a forest today?" a deep, warm voice asked. Lily turned around and smiled. It was her father. He looked different than he had a year ago. He still wore suits for work, but his tie was usually loose, and he actually seemed to see things when he looked at them. He wasn't rushing off to a plane. He was home for dinner almost every single night. "I'm trying to get the color of the leaves right," Lily said, pointing to the window. "They look different when the sun comes out." Her father walked over and peered at the canvas. "It looks perfect to me. It looks happy." "That's because I'm happy," Lily said simply, turning back to her work. The healing process hadn't happened all at once. It was like a slow sunrise. For the first few months after Victoria left, Lily had nightmares. She would wake up in the middle of the night, sweating, her hands throbbing with a pain that wasn't there anymore, convinced she heard the sound of a ruler hitting a table. Every time that happened, her father would be there. He wouldn't just tell her to go back to sleep. He would sit with her, make her warm milk, or talk about nonsense until the fear went away. He missed meetings to take her to therapy appointments. He learned how to cook her favorite meals so she wouldn't have to eat cold sandwiches. Anymore, he realized that buying things wasn't the same as being there. He stopped trying to fix everything with money and started trying to fix things with time. They had spent the previous summer camping. It was just the two of them, a tent and a lot of bugs. Lily had laughed more in those 2 weeks than she had in the previous 2 years. They had sat by a fire and roasted marshmallows, and for the first time, she felt like she had a parent, not just a provider. Of course, the world outside their little bubble had noticed the change. When Robert first fired Victoria and canceled the concert, the newspapers had a field day. There were rumors and stories. People whispered at parties. But her father didn't care. He set the record straight once, in a very public interview, where he simply said, "I made a mistake, and my daughter paid the price for it. I am fixing my family now. That is all that matters." After that, he ignored them. One afternoon, about 6 months after the incident, Lily was in the front yard when she saw a black car drive up. Her heart stopped. She saw a woman get out of the passenger side. It was Victoria. Panic shot through Lily's veins. She dropped her gardening tools and turned to run to the house. But then she saw her father storm out the front door. He wasn't running. He was walking with that same terrifying purpose he had the night of the concert. Victoria looked older. She didn't look perfect anymore. She looked tired and angry. She had come to try and get more money, claiming that the divorce settlement wasn't fair, that she had been wronged. Lily watched from the safety of the porch, hidden behind a pillar. She saw her father stand on the top step, looking down at the woman who had made her life miserable. He didn't yell. He didn't get violent. He just spoke to her for a few minutes. Lily couldn't hear the words, but she saw Victoria's face change. She saw the woman realize that she had no power here anymore. She saw the security guard step out from the side of the house. Victoria got back in her car and drove away. She hasn't been back since. That was the moment Lily finally felt safe. She knew that nothing could hurt her as long as she had her father in her corner. Now, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, life was quiet. Her father walked over to the window and looked out at the garden. He said, leaning against the wall, "I was thinking today about that recital, the one we didn't go to." Lily put her paintbrush down. She didn't feel sad talking about it anymore. "Me too. I realized something," he said, looking at her. "I wanted you to play that night because I wanted people to clap for me. I wanted to show off what a great family I had. I was using you, just like she was, maybe in a different way, but it was still wrong." Lily walked over to him. "You stopped it, Daddy. You came back." "I did," he said, smiling, "and I'm so glad I did. Because I missed out on watching my daughter turn into an incredible artist." "I'm not famous," Lily shrugged. "My paintings aren't in museums. They're in the best place," he said, tapping his chest over his heart. "They make you happy. That's the only thing that makes them masterpieces to me." He looked at his watch and then grinned. "Come on, wash your hands. I promised we would go get ice cream. The real kind, with sprinkles." Lily laughed. "I'm too old for sprinkles." "You are never too old for sprinkles," her father declared, grabbing her hand and pulling her out of the art room. As they walked down the long hallway, Lily looked at the family photos on the walls. There were new ones now. Pictures of them camping, pictures of them with flour on their faces from the cookie disaster, and pictures of Lily with paint in her hair. They weren't perfect photos. They were blurry and candid. But everyone in them was smiling. They walked out the front door into the bright afternoon. The press didn't care about them today. There were no flashbulbs, no screaming fans, and no pressure. There was just the sun, the wind, and the sound of laughter as they ran toward the car. The girl who had been pushed past her limits, pushed so hard she almost broke, wasn't just fixed. She was stronger now because she knew that she didn't have to be perfect to be loved. She just had to be Lily, and that was enough.